So after you roll out your clay, you're going to find that there is some texture on that clay, okay? And that's going to show whether you like it or not. So what you need to do is to smooth that out. There are a couple ways to do this. You can use a little bit of water if you want on a sponge, or just take your finger and smooth it out gently, okay? One of those two ways works totally fine. I'm putting just a tiny little bit of water on a sponge, and I'm gently moving it back and forth, and that's taking away that surface texture, okay? And then if I really want it smooth, I'm just going to use my finger and polish that away, okay? Now I want to, the reason why I'm showing this to you is because it's really important to think about the final tile. If you just leave it as it is, those textures are going to become what? Clay changes to what in the kiln?
Ceramic.
Okay, yeah, it's ceramic. What's the one of the main ingredients in clay? Silica. Okay. Silica comes from quartz. You see it at the beach, also known as sand. Okay, that's a bigger version of it. What happens when that sand melts? Yeah, it turns to glass. Okay, so it's going to physically and chemically change, and so those little imperfections are going to become permanent. So we definitely want to make it as nice as possible. So you're going to take your mold. Once again, I showed this to you yesterday, but I just want to reiterate this today so that you get the surface as professional as possible. Okay, you're not going to want to leave any parts on the clay that look out of place. You don't want to do a sloppy job. Okay, and you may be doing a sloppy job without even knowing that you're doing a sloppy job. So that's why this lesson. Okay, so after you've pressed your clay into the mold, and you've cut away the excess clay, you're going to see that this cutting doesn't necessarily leave the edges perfect. Okay, that's a pretty good pull. But you can see around the edges, they're sort of they're kind of uneven. They're sort of sharp. If that dries, and then we fire it in the kiln, and it turns to ceramic glass. Okay, when it changes, that's going to become sort of brittle on your fingers or on a table. If you put this on a table, a wooden table. So we want to really make sure to take care with the surface application. Okay, so just make sure that you can use your finger, you can use a wooden tool, you can use a sponge. Try to remove some of those imperfections to get this tile as smooth and as nice and as professional as possible. Okay. So it takes a little bit of time, but once you work it through, you're going to be a lot happier doing it this way than having a tile that sort of looks a little wonky on the edges. Okay, so really strive for professionalism in your work, even if you don't feel like a professional. It doesn't take that much effort to smooth it out and to make it nice. Okay. So you can use these sponges, add just a little bit of water to it, and if you run your finger, if you have your fingers apart and the edge of your tile goes through it like this, it's going to smooth it off in a nice rounded way. Okay? So really strive for smoothing out your surface. Okay, you can even work some of the design. But I would be careful at this point because the clay is so wet that if you press onto those onto that design, it could push it back into the clay and the design would go away, which you're not really going to want to happen. All right.